Jasvinder,
Sam,
good afternoon.
it's a gorgeous afternoon, Sam.
I'm glad to hear it.
Good morning to you. 8 a.m. for you. 2 minutes to 8.
Yeah, I just got off my weekly call with my son who's in New York. So
How old is he?
he will be 28 in about a month.
What's his occupation?
He is a software engineer.
Marvelous.
He had 2 degrees, computer science and art.
Good to hear that.
Mm-hmm. And is Group outside playing again, or is she indoors?
They're all in the kitchen having a snack, mid-afternoon snack.
Nice.
I've just had some pomegranate. I'm hoping for some more.
Mm. Yeah, pomegranate is one of Ronnie's favorite fruits. She likes the hard, crisp kind. I like the soft, juicy kind.
It's $8.
I like them all. I've learned to like all things, regardless.
I'm reminding you, feed the puppies.
So today, I believe, is week 3 of the Lauren and
I'm
Charles
reminding you, feed the puppies.
program.
Yep.
And there is Charles.
Hello, Charles.
1.5 seconds after I mentioned. Hey, it's good to see Stacy again.
Hello, Stace.
Are y'all moved in, Stacy?
Hello, Alex. Have you moved in, Stacy?
I'm moved in. I'm just not all unpacked yet, but mostly unpacked.
4 years later, I'm still not unpacked yet. Yeah.
One more week will do it. I have to be organized, because if I don't do it now, it'll be 12 years later.
Yeah, my previous house, I think I had stuff in the garage that never got unboxed for like 21 years.
Well, I got rid of a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, rooms and rooms of stuff.
My ex-wife did that as well. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, Stacy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
And I think Charles did check in. He's just not visible right now, right?
I saw him a second
Yeah,
ago.
I'm here. I'm just trying to get some, actually, breakfast together, believe it or not. It's 5 in the afternoon. But I am here listening and can chime in as and when I'm called, like right now. I have, I talked to Lauren sort of an hour and a half ago, and so we did kind of coordinate some, and I guess maybe when we decide we're officially starting, I can say slightly more, kind of repeating my position as a backseat driver. But I had a kind of flash in the shower just now of a way, a quick check-in round idea. So I'll just flag that, and I can offer that whenever.
Well, it's up to Lauren and you, Charles. So you guys are welcome to however you guys feel would most focus. And
well, it's 2 minutes past, so I don't know if we want, sort of. Lauren, you're in the driver's seat as far as I can tell. And
You all want to do a round of check-ins? Is that?
Well, should I just? I mean, do we want to sort of already start now, or do we want to wait a few minutes to let others in, or I don't know. When the green light is on, then I can offer this idea.
Yeah, we can start. I just, I know people would like to do their check-ins.
Sure. Well,
Sam, what do you think? You kind of run the schedule here.
when I say it's up to you, it literally is up to you. And if you want my opinion, I can give my opinion, but it's completely up to you.
What's your opinion, Sam?
My opinion is, number one, I like to honor those who show up on time, so I don't like to waste too much time before we get started. My second opinion is I give people the check-in option, if they really feel like there's something they really want to settle in on. So I think 2 to 3 minutes is probably enough for people to realize, hey, it's this time, and find a computer and get onto Zoom. But that could vary for various different people. So it's just my opinion.
Okay, Stacy?
I thought I heard Charles say that he had an idea for a way of checking in. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, maybe he should give his way, and then we could have the option of either doing it his way, or I'd like to know what the way is.
I know.
Go on,
I'm sure
Charles.
you do. Well, I'll just, as still a nano preamble, I have a statement. I have a clarification that I just came to as a progression of my thoughts distilling in the last weeks, and banging some of my usual drums. But so I want to offer a statement, and then the type of check-in I had in mind is a sort of 20 to 30 second per participant round. It's not replacing the sort of open check-in, popcorn, whatever. It wasn't intended for that per se. It's actually intended specifically to focus us as a group, individually and collectively, to set up what we're heading into in the session. So should I, do we want to just do the check-ins and then I offer this because it's more focused on the exercise at hand?
Okay, yeah, why don't we do an optional check-in then?
It's a glorious, wonderful day here, sunshiny. It stopped raining after well over 72 hours. I'm well enough to be here. Check-in over, complete.
I've been watching the old video of Tammy and the Dance Foundation, and I recommend that, highly recommend that. The Values Foundation with Doug and Tammy on YouTube. And who was up for the focus session today? Was it Kyla? Kayla? No.
Lauren and Charles.
Okay.
Version 3, and Kayla is next week, the 20th.
That's my check-in.
Okay, well, my check-in then, I'll make it quick, is I have my weekly call with my son just prior to this call now. And he has finally clarified his situation with travel and staying. So he's actually seriously coming. Well, he's going to seriously investigate coming to visit. So I'm pretty happy about that. I mean, obviously staying safe and, with the right airlines, blah, blah, blah. And
From where, Sam?
He's in New York. And so I am Washington State, other side of the country. And then the other thing is my daughter completed all of her work for this school year. So she's completely done. So now she gets to be free 7 days a week instead of just 5, because she gets her homework done in 2 days and then she has the rest of the week free. So that's good. And the good things have been happening at work, but I'll leave it at that.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll check in. I just came back from Sedona, Arizona yesterday. So I'm a little out of it. And of course I have a ton of stuff to do. So I may be coming in and out, but I wanted to be here in support of Charles and Lauren, of course. Other than that, I had a beautiful week. I just came back to my kids, unfortunately not completing their homework. So I may have a separate chat with you, Sam, how to get them on point, but because, oh my gosh. Other than that, I am looking forward to this session, and thank you. Over.
Just a quick follow-up on that one. How long is the drive from where you are to Sedona? It's quite a ways, is it?
Yeah, about 7.5, 8 hours, but with the way I drive, 7.
5.
I'll check in. I'm all moved into my new place, and I'm feeling very light and happy. I'm in a new relationship, have a lot of positive things going on, and I missed being here. So I'm happy to see you all.
Nice.
I guess I can follow still on this wave of interoperability flow that some of you heard me talking about probably, or at least referring to, and it's just coming into a lot more clarity and flow in the process of articulating whatever that means. And so it's been a wave of amazing meetings and connections and convergences. And last night was the open co-op after party. Lauren was there, and many of our close friends. Some are known here, and others are new friends. And then I actually had an after party to the after party. So consecutive dance floor sessions, well into the morning hours, not just the early morning hours, but so I'm having breakfast now at after 5 in the afternoon over here in Zurich. Check.
Is that virtual or physical?
Which everything was. I mean, I didn't leave my apartment,
Okay.
so and no one else was here physically, if that's what you mean.
I mean, my son's thinking about actually meeting, so now my mind is thinking about.
Yeah. Well, so just actually, so what my mind is thinking about, in fact, just touching on, Sam, what you were sharing about your son and kind of clarifying plans. Actually, I'm having some discussions exactly along those lines with someone who's far away, who wants to come here. And so there's more clarity because of a few reasons relating to the relative safety now here in Zurich and in Switzerland. Hard to be sure, and there's no sort of 100% going on, but sort of perceiving windows and looking very in close detail at the logistics to navigate all of that.
Yeah.
So I can definitely resonate there.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, one more interjection. That is part of the reason I feel so good about my son considering this is I know that traveling is a safety risk, but it also seems to be a risk for him to stay where he is because some of those demonstrations and some of the police brutality is happening right along his street. He lives in Brooklyn. So he's very close to the unrest, quote unquote.
Yeah, we could easily derail this sort of check-in mode and go there, but you know, at every sort of point in the navigation, you know, there's measures and details to deal with, right? So
I'm interjecting out of order just to see how you guys want to moderate.
Are we ready just to jump in? I don't know if there were more check-ins.
Well, Tease hasn't gone. If he wants.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Please.
he doesn't want to. It's fine. Lauren hasn't gone.
I don't need to go because I'm going to be talking enough. Josh, Colin?
3, 2, 1.
Charles?
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna scroll to my little notes here. 1 second. So, all right, it's simply this. So here's my statement. It's about deep listening, and so deep listening is at the core and the foundation of and the precursor to communication. Of any kind at any scale. And as I've been repeating more and more the last weeks, communication is at the core of and the foundation of and the precursor to collaboration of any kind at any scale. So that's my statement. It's kind of a loaded statement, but I just sort of position deep listening even prior to communication today in the shower. It's a shower thought. And so my question to the group, and if we could do this efficiently, I think it would be useful for the record and to focus and head into what Lauren has prepared to continue in the last, actually 2 previous sessions. And so it's not meant to be a provocative question, and it shouldn't be provocative in itself, but consider, well, okay, I'm just gonna stop editorializing. And so what is deep listening to you in 30 seconds or less? Maybe we could have a quick round on that.
If one does not have the basic understanding, built up fairly good vocabulary, deep understanding, deep listening cannot occur. And deep listening can take anything between immediate to years to develop a good rapport. We all use the same words and have different meanings. Same phraseology, different meanings. It takes a long time. In my estimation, this group has taken 2.5, nearly 3 years to arrive at deep listening. I'm complete.
I'll go. My theme is more along the lines of you can't pour into a full cup. So if we're full of ideas, if we're full of, knowledge, if we're full of what's right and not able to consume new information, new communication, then you cannot listen, shallow or deeply. That's my short statement.
I've no meaning, this is, I've no meaning about deep listening, but I attend meetings in Portuguese and I don't understand Portuguese, not many words, so I'm listening deeply by heart. So I don't understand much, but I see the chat, I see what they talk about, I search in Google and I translate things that are in the chat, Portuguese words to understand what's talked about. So that's just fun. It's deep listening for me.
I would say
Oh.
for me, deep listening usually involves not only hearing what someone says, but hearing what they don't say. And so sometimes, like when you're dealing with kids, they say, I'm upset because of this. And I think you have to, if you listen deeply enough, you'll know that maybe this thing that people are talking about is not why they're really upset. So I'm not saying you add things and try to find what's not there, but find something deeper and realize that what people are saying on the surface isn't the whole part of it. There's a root that goes deep down. And so it's trying to find that root. Anyone else?
I'll go. There's
Yeah.
an aspect of deep listening that allows the listener to establish the values of the person speaking. It allows you to be aware and open to receive this information that's coming in, make sense of it. I don't have a practice of doing this very often, but it's a useful idea to remember that some people have a difficulty and problems and issues with their lives that have to be accounted for. And if you can remember a time in your own life when you were struggling, or you put yourself back in there and you walk a mile in their shoes, sort of thing, and then you can appreciate more readily that they're going through a process of development. I guess we're all on a path after all. We're all on a direction heading somewhere, and it's just a relative positions. So listening and hearing that in the message you receive is what I think is deep listening. Over.
May we take turns?
So in thinking about what deep listening was for me, I realized that deep listening is really the same as deep feeling, because it's, for me, being present with all the senses that I have. Over.
Stacy said what I was going to say, except that I was also going to use the word full body or all chakra listening or all chakra meaning, but basically the same message.
Anyone else? Back to Charles.
Yeah, I was just scrolling, kind of finishing my my own bit. Oh, Joshua left. Maybe he'll be back. So wait, 2 more words here. Okay, so it's what time? Leading up to, 1 second, moment of opening mouth. Okay, so open. Oh, okay. So first, opening the ears. In terms of opening the ears, it's about tuning in deeply and openly to the sound and the energy and the frequencies, resonances and dissonances at any given moment, and over time, leading up to the moment of opening the mouth. So in other words, tuning into the rhythm and the flow. Over.
Charles, I think it might be back to you. If anyone, does anyone else want to go?
Could I do one more? It's about
Yeah.
it's about a conscious way of showing up. And that is a lifetime of preparation, I think, as Jaswinder indicated. But I think understanding that everywhere you go, you actually present to yourself, and how you come across will affect what gets delivered to you. So I just want to make sure that that gets laid into this pool of meaning. Over.
Charles?
Yeah, I'm complete. I'm not sure. Yeah, that was what I had in mind. It was perfect. Beautiful, guys, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't chime in. I think it's sincerely wanting to understand. Then you start to have some deep listening.
Back to you, Charles.
I wonder if it's if Colin, you would oblige us by just slightly extending that sort of. You said deeply. Deeply wanting to understand. Was that right? Was the word used?
Sincerely.
Yeah.
You know.
So what for?
You see, the thing is different people are interested in different things.
Hang on. Sorry. Allow me just to put my question, and if everyone agrees, it's a good idea to go slightly more into it. I was just curious what form that takes.
I don't think the form is fixed, but I do think you do have to be leaning in, sincere. There's another word I want to say, but it's not on the tip. It's on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, I don't think it takes any form, but it definitely takes a genuine interest to deep listen and to follow through. And, it could be quick or it could be long.
Okay, Charles?
Well, yeah, I have nothing further as far as that particular sort of mini exercise to set up us and you. I was hoping Joshua would be around to offer, but yeah, I think just back over to you, Lauren.
Okay, so what I wanted to work on today is I have a hypothesis. It could be ridiculous and not true, but just go with me for the next hour. And someone named Libya Servin from Guadalajara, she showed, I talked about it a little last week, she showed me her methodology of what she uses within a group to make the conversation more kind of efficient and flow better. And what it was is she had put on a piece of paper a number of symbols which symbolized the agreements that the group had already come to. And people could just point to the symbol or refer to the symbol. You could just hold it up like this, and that would be a way of communicating with the group, reminding them of an agreement that you had already come to without having to verbalize it and go into this. So some of the examples that she showed me was, one of them was an I, and it stood for perspective, as in the way I look at something could be very different than the way you see it because of the experiences that I've had in my life. Another one of them was a plane. And if you held up the plane or pointed to the plane, that was a way of saying, okay, land the plane, like we understand, now wrap it up a little bit. Yeah, so I would kind of, I'm not 100% clear on what these symbols need to represent to be most effective. So I think that it would be my number one question to the group. What I do think they need to show is the soul of the group and be actually useful in communicating among group members. So I'm not sure exactly how to arrive. I don't have a system for arriving at, like what would be the symbols for this group that would be useful. But I would like to try to find, I'd like to find a way to do it and actually get it done in 1 hour. I don't know how we're gonna do it. So I'd like your input, maybe a quick round on, first of all, how do you think, could these be useful and how do you think they could best be useful? Can we just do like a quick round on that? Yeah. You're muted.
Sorry, after the round, then I have a question to kind of
Okay.
consolidate from before.
Okay. Agreements are not in symbols yet, said Tice to Sam.
I wasn't making a statement. I was just trying to capture what was there in your statement. And the reason I was a little bit distracted is because I was trying to find the behavior experiment spreadsheet.
I have it. I can just list it in the chat. Hang on.
Yeah.
So I looked through it.
90 items there. And the reason I mentioned that is because we haven't really taken any of them to the stage of agreement yet. So I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to choose some today. Yeah, Stacy.
It sounds to me that some of the ones that she shared with you are universal. Like the whole idea of perspective, like if somebody was talking and I felt strongly like, well, that's not how I feel, at least if I were able to point to that sign, I'd then be able to relax and continue going along, knowing that I had signaled to the group, hey, I might feel different. Maybe we'll get to it later. Maybe we won't, but at least I've signaled that. So I mean, it sounds like there are a lot of, there may be a lot of universal symbols that she used. Might not be a bad idea to try some of those out and see if they work for us.
I like the idea of signaling myself, especially if we try to do it in such a way that does not disturb the flow of someone else who's already speaking. On the other hand, I do know that sometimes I'm careful to not interject. And so therefore I put a note in the chat transcript, and sometimes people still get offended at that, as saying, oh, well, you're typing and therefore you're expressing disagreement even while I'm speaking. But I think, you know, if I'm raising my hand, some people also object to that. If I type, some people object to that. If I shake my head, some people object to that. I just think I'm adding to the signaling here. So I'm curious whether the friend that you refer to has ever encountered that kind of feedback to some of the signaling. I personally think that the signaling is a good idea, but I'm just wondering about the universality of it. Over.
I think that's getting into the formats that possibly Charles was getting into, like depending on the type of conversation you have and the people you're having it with, and if it's an introductory conversation, all of those things matter. If you don't know what the agenda is, you got wild different points of view, or you're all basically doing an agenda meeting, trying to deep listen to what's happening. So, you know, two ends of the spectrum.
And there's, sorry, I'll let others speak before I go again.
I think I would just come in here because I had a kind of clarifying thought in terms of that little exchange before about the sort of understanding and the question about what form that it takes in regard to, for example, deep listening. And so I guess I'm coming from trying to look through a lens of patterns, like patterns of conversation, let's say. Deep listening would definitely be one, maybe obvious one, or listening in itself. And then, but so what's actually happening in any given conversation at any given time is sort of a whole collection of not just patterns, but sort of manifestations, actualizations of various, some patterns or just phenomena, let's say. And so that was kind of where I was pointing to before, Colin. In what form does the deep listening or anything else within a conversation at a given moment emerge and take form, in physical space or space-time, whatever. So I don't want to get off track here. Just to come back to what we're talking about. I do appreciate, Stacy, the kind of impulse or inclination to look at what's been already sort of set down that has a lot of potential probably to be universal, and then maybe Lauren reframe the inquiry here and now today and in this group. What could be unique and distinct from the universal signs and signals. I love, by the way, last thing here, Sam offered the word signaling, and I've been using it and thinking a lot about signals lately, and I think it's directly relevant. It's not specifically the same, or is it? The difference between signs, symbols, and signals, or just that, the sort of interplay semantically there. Thanks. Over.
Yeah, Sam.
See, that was a signal. I'll defer to you first. I've been speaking too much.
Oh, I actually put together the group profile and I added it to the mural board, which I just put in the chat. And so I don't know if we should look at it right now or later, it doesn't really matter. But so I went through it from last week, and when I shortened it and put these together and kind of edited it, one thing that I think was echoed in almost everybody was that why they come here is an authentic conversation. So, no one really said that they come here for polite conversation. But what they really come here for is the ability to be a quirky weirdo, and that people will be okay with that. And so I'm just going to put that out there, as I think that maybe that should be an important symbol, something to do with authenticity, because it's something so important to the group, and what kind of coheres the group, in my opinion, from hearing everyone. Yeah, Charles? Maybe
Okay,
Stacey, did you raise your hand? I'm sorry if I
Jaswinder had his hand up.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
I'll wait my turn. It's fine.
Yeah, Jaswinder and then Charles.
You're muted, Jaswinder.
I unmuted and then muted myself. Thank you, Stacy. One of the conversations we had a long time ago was on honesty, on truthfulness, on being the truth and saying the truth. And I was of the opinion that to say the truth was a very difficult thing, especially in mixed company. Now, for somebody to turn up into a group or a meeting or anything, and you pose the question, well, why do you come?
So, quick question. Sorry, mixed company. I don't understand that.
Mixed genders. So, to turn up and have that question, would somebody be really, really honest and use words that one wouldn't use in mixed company either, and risk being rejected? And a lot of people laughed at I didn't actually use those words. I said, that's impossible. Nobody's ever going to be that honest, especially not on the first round. And if somebody comes up and says, well, I'm fairly knowledgeable and I have a fair amount of wisdom and I've come to try it out and I want to try it out in this group. And that's a little bit condescending as well, isn't it? And egotistical. So I didn't say any of those things at the time and I sort of went along with the flow. But the gist of it is, that's what I'm here for. One of the things that I'm very keen on learning and doing and using it for changing things, behavior patterns, is the very thing we're doing now, is to take language and utilize it and bounce it around so that the other person's attitude changes. It may impact on my attitude. But if I hold true, if I think that my attitude is already correct, then am I doing the right thing? And that's what I come for. And I go elsewhere for that too. I'm complete.
I wanted to ask Lauren to briefly bridge back from the deep profiles and the group profile. And I think you are, but you didn't make it explicit. And so I would invite you to do that in the frame of this sort of authentic, quirky weirdos coming to have a conversation.
Also, you're muted, Lauren.
So, so Stacy, you haven't been here for a few weeks. So look at the mirror board. This is kind of what we've been doing. We've been doing these kind of the appreciation circle profiles. One that I did for you a while ago. And we did those for the group. And then we did a group profile, which is why everyone actually comes here. And then we chose the kind of governance patterns that we think are most important for this group, which were leaning into discomfort. Wait, oh no. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't write those down there. I'm sorry. I forget, and I forgot to write them down. One was contextual awareness. The other one was distributed collective intelligence or something like that. And there was another one. Do you remember what it was? Anyone? I'll get it and I'll transfer it. So
Community,
anyway, it's what?
community of impact.
Okay, maybe. I'm not sure if that was we chose the wise democracy patterns. Yeah, so this time what I'd like to do is kind of work on something that shows the soul of the group, like what kind of obstacles have we had to overcome? And those might actually be the best symbols for us to represent the group or to have as symbols which we use to communicate. So you know how Sam does the questions on focus? I think that's because for a while people were feeling like it was not focused. So maybe that might be representative of a sign that would be super helpful to this group, that might be similar to kind of land the plane. Maybe there could be a symbol representing focus, please, or like you're kind of going in another direction, like come back to the topic at hand. Sam?
I do still have a question about this because there are certain themes and discussion points, topics, I guess, that do happen to pop up from time to time. And when that happens, certain people have different reactions. One is, oh, geez, here we go again. Another is, well, this person's going to take another 5 minutes on their soapbox. And so there's some amount of checking out if people feel that there's a topic that's being revisited.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it could be that, here's another take on the topic. Let me figure out whether there's a new angle, there's a new slant on things. So I don't know whether or not those are signs, because each of us is already signaling that in our body language.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not clear whether that's one of the things we want to signal, or whether when we do signal, it's only after we've made some kind of a group agreement. Because until we make a group agreement, for me to signal, hey, you're doing this, that's just my opinion, So I think the whole notion of agreements, to me, is a foundation before the signaling piece, unless the signaling is just individual signaling over.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is group agreements. So there could be like, maybe we just some things have already been agreed, and maybe it's time today to just make some agreements, because I need 6 of them in 50 minutes. And these can be changed. They're not set in stone. You can go next week and change them. I just want 6 of them in 50 minutes, and they're totally changeable, but I actually want to like accomplish something.
Lauren, where is this chart? Where can I see this chart you were
I
talking
wish
about?
I could get it. So this woman who was talking about, so she it's actually all in Spanish, and I think the explanation is in Spanish, and she didn't actually send it to me. It might be because it's so
I meant you said before that while I wasn't here in the past few weeks, you did profiles of all of us.
Yeah, I wrote in right here. I'll do it again in the chat. There's a mural board.
I have to not come on my phone. I come on my phone because the microphone and the camera is better, but I can't see all of you, and it's so difficult.
Use 2 devices.
So you can check out what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So I just offer a quick comment, which is kind of, as we talked just a little earlier, Lauren, the way I see this, this sort of set of 6 symbols is like version 1. It's just a starting point, and like you said, you can change them next week and go on it to iterate.
Exactly. Exactly. So maybe what it is, I just thought of this, is that there are some explicit agreements that we've come to, and there are also implicit agreements. And I think that the authenticity piece is an implicit agreement. That I think people here have implicitly agreed that we should be able to be authentic. So what implications does that have on behavior? Like, what does it take for you to be authentic? Does it mean that everyone is nice to each other, or does it mean that you feel safe to be yourself? And what do people need to be, what do people need to be safe to be themselves? Yeah, Alex, you had something to say?
People need to adhere to the agreed standards, the community standards that have been agreed to. If people aren't going to adhere to them, then they can be themselves and open up and be allowed, and they have access. So it's a matter of having agreement on that scale. And when the plane lands, it's because those nodes, those triad nodes, are linking up together, and the weaving is going to become so large that the plane is forced to land. Over.
Some people hold on and keep it kind of in there's some word for that, before there's sort of room on the runways, and they have to kind of circle around. Over.
Yeah.
If I may, I think that there are very few explicit agreements. One is this particular time and this particular platform. Okay. Second, it appears to all be English. Okay. 3, we appear to agree that we always want to be clothed, when we show up. 4, we more or less take turns. Okay. And I like where you're going because, in my view, agreements are necessary for us all to sort of understand and have similar expectations of conduct. And so that's why I wanted to at least lay out what I personally was willing to do, those 88 or 90 things in that spreadsheet, to say this is how I choose to show up. And I'm not trying to prescribe that on anyone, but I'm asking and inviting others to show up there and put down how they would choose to show up and add items to it. I like where you're going today, which is potentially to take that compilation of about a dozen people's inputs and say, which are the ones that we want to propose as group agreements. So I'm definitely 100% on board with that exercise. Over. If you want, I can go. Okay, Alex, go.
I wanted to add something about the difference between an implicit agreement and a contract. Contracts exist between two entities, but agreements can exist between a cluster of entities. So that's what differentiates them between a contract and unless the contract's identical in every situation, and then it can exist between a cluster of people. Over.
So here's a potential repeating rant from me. This is the agreements are written in electrons rant. Okay. In other words, we can rewrite them, we can learn, we can improve them. So I say that in order to hopefully remove the fear that, once you agree, you can't change. Like it's carved in granite or marble or, some other kind of persistent material. So I really like saying agreements are written in electrons. That's my way of referring to that theme. Over.
So what is the best way that we can, do you think we should come up with a brainstorm list? Yeah.
Can I suggest that since this is your show, perhaps you could take item by item by item and just say, do we want to agree on this? Do we not want to agree on this? I mean,
with behavior?
And collect ideas, but we've been doing that for 2 or 3 years already. So I think an exercise in trying to converge is what you're trying to do, and I'm really trying to figure out how to support that.
Okay, so I would say let's see. So I would propose maybe we just list some things that we think are implicit or explicit agreements. Like they could be taking turns. It could also be, I would put out their focus. I think that might be one of them. So hang on. So I would do focus, maybe authenticity. Co-visioning seems to be a big thing, but I don't know what that entails, what behavior or agreement because that's kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's something that the group, wants to do, but what do you need to be able to co-vision?
One thing you really need is people skills, because you got to be able to, do some deep listening with different people. And I know some people I reach out to, they're good listeners, and other people they try to avoid depending on for different reasons. So I think having that social construct and good signals, I think, is important for that. And then, and we're kind of doing that implicitly. So that's like a understanding one. Co-visioning is like the big goal. Another big one I like is coexistence. And that's kind of my attraction to Sam's way, as opposed to if you go to Sunday and start saying, let's have some agreements. In the past, we get a lot of kickback, although Sam and Doug have been agreeing a lot lately. So there might be something in the air. I don't know. But yeah, to co-vision It really depends on the social skills and the space that you're in. Like one of the questions I have, sorry to interrupt, is how different people vision the group itself. I think some people are here, like Gertrude and other people, Tammy, to build up what they're doing, and other people are here to try to build it something new together. I don't know. So there's different concerns. Thanks.
So maybe, one big thing that emerged from Charles's round of deep listening is like you can't pour into a full cup. If you can't kind of consume new information, you can't listen. So I think that having a true open mind is an implicit agreement. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of these things listed. Like Sam said, we have memory on this. I'm just going through the maps right now and seeing if there's something I can find that might be of use. But yeah, I also know the Lumio, the Trello board. I'm going to have a look at that too and see what we've done in that
Yeah,
area.
I'm sure we've been through all of this in somewhere if we can find it in group memory.
I would propose something as kind of almost the fundamental agreement, which is we agree to agree until we can agree that we can actually improve. And then we make that agreement. It's the learning.
Again, I'm trying to.
It's the learning agreement. In other words, we agree on anything until we can improve it, and then we agree on that. That's my fundamental meta agreement.
Okay. So what implications does that have?
It removes the fear that once you agree, you're stuck.
Okay. Okay, so maybe this means that it's about continuous co-evolution. Yeah, co-evolution? Okay, that's a good one, right?
For me, at least.
To me, it means you can link up with somebody, make an agreement that it's not written in stone, so that it can be tossed out the next day if you so wish, or it can be maintained if it's working.
I just wanted to chime in to underscore, Lauren, what you said about open mind, plus 11 or however many. And just there was some discussion just before about seeing together, and I put a link to a wonderful blog from Tom Atlee from sort of mid-March, where he observed that the name COVID actually is right there, seeing together. Over.
Coexistence, what does that entail? What does that take? What behaviors are needed for coexistence? Yeah, Sam?
It means as long as you're not hurting me, you get to do whatever you want. That's what it means to me.
Okay. So now we have, let's see.
I don't mean to prescribe that for everybody. I was just offering my own personal opinion.
What do we think about that? Coexistence.
I think of coexistence, and I hear this music in the background in the distance, faintly, and it sounds like Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody or something. So we're trying to get it together one way or the other. The futurists tell us that we have to act. Eventually we're forced into a situation by the pressure coming from the environment.
Alex, the reference to the Queen Bohemian Rhapsody, it sounds to me like, and I'm curious if what you mean is it's intricate, elaborate composition, arrangement, performance. Is that right?
Sort of. It's not a circus. It's not a magic show. It's a collection of people trying to co-vision, trying to collaborate, and trying to co-evolve. So we're coexisting in that sense, but we have an agreement to get this plane on the ground. Over.
Thanks.
I'll say one more thing about coexistence. That it doesn't feel or sound ever to anyone like the highest or most lofty goal. But I don't think you can achieve any of those other high or lofty goals without first recognizing that coexistence is necessary. Over.
Yes, yes, indeed. I think so, because it shows you the different contexts in a way you have to grapple with what is better for more people than just your silo. Because coexistence means different worldviews, and how you can listen, I think, is learn to listen and understand depending on the context. I did look through Trello and found something if you're interested.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, Sam has a list of it's called suggestions and agreements for this board.
Mm-hmm.
And at the last agreement on that list, there's co-visioning, there's like 10, 12 columns. But he suggests that at the forefront, you get ready, because everybody in our enthusiasm creates lists, cards, checklists, comments, labels, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes we undo them, move them around. So he said this is an opportunity to get some clarity and potential agreement. I propose at the top of each list, or I would say at the beginning of doing something, and that's why it's nice to have a Trello board, because you could an objective you achieve today could be in a list on the Trello board, nice and simple, and Miro or wherever. And at the top of each, as a meta card that will clarify what that list could be used for, how, and the RFCs. And that is exactly what Sam just mentioned about you make an agreement until you can find something better to agree upon. And that's how a request for comments works in the specifications world. So, and he has how-tos and things like that. So I really think it is about focusing around the context of what you're trying to do. And some people see the group as a total group effort, and some see it as on a continuum of some group effort and some personal effort. And when I make my maps, it's confusing to what's private and what's public. And, it's very disjointed because it's quite an eclectic group of people and thinkers. So there's lots of opportunities to focus this. And I think Sam and his mentors that he looks up to, and his idea of coexistence really, I think, is driving the governance thinking of GCC behaviors, ways to communicate with people. So there's kind of a split in identity of what's here. And I think that's part of the mission, is to clarify so that people feel more comfortable and find their bailiwick, as opposed to seeing a big GCC blob. Because there's definitely differences between what people's initiatives are. So anyway, I just put that there. Thank you.
Okay, so this is, thank you, Colin. So this is what I have so far. Does that look good? Focus, authenticity, co-visioning, coexistence, co-evolution. Kayla, you've been pretty quiet.
Sorry, I had a phone call and I was trying to listen at the same time, so I apologize. I wasn't.
No problem. Alex, did you want to say something? Oh, I didn't mean to. If you want to say something, Kayla, go on.
Looks great.
How about you, Alex? Do you have something you want to say?
Yeah. If you are open-minded to visioning, you can coexist as long as you are not hurting me. You can do what you want. Now, if you are suggesting a belief system that I disagree with, is that going to hurt my feelings? Is that the same hurting, or is that going to illuminate me into some higher learning? Over.
I think each of these items can be delved into, so that we actually do those deep dives. But the question is, at a first level, at a first cut, do these feel like they are the right directions to start diving into? Okay. The one that I'm actually, I mean, I will say yes to it, but I think we've spent probably less time than some other topics, is this co-visioning idea. I want to dispel, in my own opinion, the notion that co-visioning must be one single vision. To me, co-visioning is understanding each other's visions and understanding where those have some overlap. I think in any group, to demand that you have a single vision takes you down this rat hole of unlimited conversations and semantics and triggers and that sort of thing. So I think the co-visioning to me is adequate so long as we're able to express what our goals, our visions are, understand each other's visions, and then tweak our own visions based on what we're hearing. That's the thing that I would love to see.
Maybe it's coming to mind that maybe a practice that would encourage co-visioning is the practice of restating someone else's vision or point of view, and being able to do that for each other accurately. Yeah, Charles.
Reflecting. Over.
Yeah, I think, like, for example, I said something in Metacogs the other day, and someone said, oh, that's disgusting, and went on to talk about his opinion. Instead of like asking clarifying questions or, what do you mean by that? Like, I'm pretty sure that he couldn't accurately restate what I was saying. So I think that's a super important thing to be able to actually understand someone else's point of view. Yeah. Sorry.
I wonder if sort of how much discussion there might be going on or has been in the GCC at large and in the various sort of weekly conversations and in this space in particular of dynamic facilitation, at large, and then dynamic facilitation, which is a whole range of things. And I'm not trained, I'm kind of de facto a practitioner of this because I sort of hang out with a lot of these people that are very deeply in that space and are very trained in a lot of deep ways. So maybe some of you, or maybe many of you, know what I'm referring to without going into all that now. The deep listening and the reflecting and things like that are very much a part of all that. And last thing is kind of really critical and core, and there are sort of specific technicalities. Sorry, I'm in the wind here for any noise. The idea of nonviolent communication. So that has a sort of specific meaning with regard to Marshall Rosenberg and a whole framework, but just kind of zooming out into the concept of that, considering what that means. Oh wow, there's a storm coming. Anyway, I'm gonna go downstairs. Yeah, that's it. I think I'm complete. Just to kind of put that in here, the idea of, and just consider from different angles in practice how that plays out here at GCC and in the space conversation. Over.
Yeah, violence is bullying, and that's to be avoided at all costs.
Anyone?
I object to that last statement strongly.
Against?
It may be the last resort, but you cannot say a crass statement like it's to be avoided at all costs. Otherwise, we'd never have had any change at all in the entire history of this global civilization. Incomplete.
I just want to make a clarifying comment, which is my reference, especially at the end to the nonviolent communication. It's actually exactly not. It's opposite. It's everything else but the content. It's the form. It's specifically the language and the type of language and the energy of the language. Over.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get much of that. It's kind of wind noise coming from your microphone.
With
Charles was saying
nonviolent
that it's everything but the content. It's the modes of delivery. It's other aspects other than the content is what I heard. And yes, I am familiar with MVC. I do think that before we actually implement these things, whether it's MVC, whether it's crucial conversations, whether it's dynamic facilitation, whether it's theory U, whether it's all these other things, one can actually be bringing it. And if we actually do bring it without the group understanding what it is, then that feels like an imposition or a prescription. If we have an agreement about it, then any one of these could actually be brought. And I might be too pedantic about this, but I think having these agreements, at least written in electrons, is still important.
Stacy, can we hear from you? You around?
Sorry, no, I had to get up. I'm not around. I started,
Oh, okay.
somebody was calling me and I had to let them know I was on a meeting. So
I just wanted to know your opinion.
About, just give me the question, opinion about what specifically, because I was listening.
Oh, okay. So I wrote 1, focus; 2, authenticity; 3, co-visioning; 4, coexistence; 5, co-evolution. And Thais wrote in presence, which I think we should talk about. Any thoughts, Stacy?
On the presence thing, that's definitely something that needs a lot of discussion for this group, especially.
Why is that?
But as far as the other things, the only thing I wanted to mention is that I think that one of the things that I sometimes have an issue with is when somebody reflects back what I said, but then I don't get an opportunity to correct them. And I don't necessarily mean in this group, but in other groups, and I see it happening with other people. So I think that that needs some more discussion as well.
Yeah, Alex?
There's a second part to an agreement. It's the acceptance. So if you're accepting if you're on the accepting side of the agreement, you've acknowledged the person who's asking for that agreement, and you've accepted. So that means you've acknowledged the ground rules, the language used, the context, and everything. So that's an important aspect to remember, I think. If you have bullying, I think that's something that's not acceptable, because it's like, I don't know what Jazz Winder was on about, but if you've got somebody who's forcing their opinion down your throat, it's not on. It's like a bad tactic to use. It's not civil, not a community expectation or a community standard that is acceptable in any community, I think. It might be acceptable in a dystopic dystopia. Over.
I wanted to offer something. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
I just want Stacy to talk because she hasn't talked much.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to address what Alex was just saying, because authenticity means being able to say how you're really feeling. Now, you may be saying what's your truth, and somebody else may be taking that as bullying, but that's on them. If they're feeling bullied because you're stating your opinion, I don't know, like, where do we draw the line? Do I have to hold, do I have to hold back what I'm saying because maybe somebody's overly sensitive? I mean, I see that happen with people that may have been traumatized. Maybe if they were traumatized as a child, they react, extra strongly if somebody touches them on the shoulder. Does that mean the person was out of line? Well, I mean, that's a touch thing. So probably a bad example. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes people react from their own experience at a more highly sensitized place.
I was
And
describing.
how do we balance? I'm sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I was describing the situation where you're admitted into a room based on your beliefs, or if you don't make that agreement, you can't come into that room. You can't enter that room. You're banished. So, you know, you're out of the picture. That means you've got to be able to understand what's happening in that situation. If you've made an agreement, then you're willing to discuss the matter and you're not banned from the room. You're still a part of the conversation. And the truth rises to the surface. That way we make progress. But bullying means somebody's locking you out because you won't take on their opinion. You won't sign their agreement. Unless it's, you know, that's why agreements need to be flexible, I think, with an acceptor part, second part, over.
Hey guys, I thought of a huge agreement that you've come to. It's super important, and that's you decided to record all these videos and post them live on YouTube. So that's like a huge agreement. That's really big. And so that has something to do with a group memory, which is the kind of purpose of being here. But how do we put that? How do we phrase that? It has something to do with Doug Engelbart and you know, that kind of stuff. How do we fit that in?
I love that you brought that up because one of the items I was going to add to the list was the discussion of shared group memory.
Mm-hmm. But how do we put that in a symbol that's useful? So it's an agreement, but what does that mean?
Well, what are the cases in which you'd want to use that symbol?
Exactly. That's my point.
I got an idea for a symbol there.
Oh.
It's a picture of the reel-to-reel tape, the tape reel with the tape on it. Sort of this circle with the spokes, with the tape.
My daughter wouldn't know what that meant.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, it is a cultural thing.
It's not a criticism, it's just an observation.
It was just what I thought.
Akai or Sony?
Yeah,
So that's an agreement that this group has come to, but is it ever revisited? I mean, I was just wondering, as a symbol to help the conversation, reminding everyone of an agreement, is there something there that we need to have as a reminder to people that we're all here? That's one of the reasons that we're here. Maybe there's something about do we already have coevolution?
I think you did.
Okay, so here coevolution is we can change the agreements as needed. Is there some other aspect of kind of coevolution where we agree that something about the significance of the conversation being transparent or something? I don't know.
Yes. So let me add two things about coevolution. There's a common notion of coevolution, which is not the one that I typically refer to. The one that I typically refer to is Doug's notion of tools and human systems co-evolving. The tools give us more capability, that as we have more capability, we design better tools. Those better tools give us even more capability, and those cycles co-evolve us and bring us to immense power, immense capabilities, a lot of which we are unwise at applying. So my notion of coevolution is conscious coevolution, where we're definitely considering the implications of the use of our capabilities / technologies. I think that's crucial because now the conscious coevolution and conscious evolution that we're presented with is how do we now not leave our evolution to chance, but take an active part in it? And that's very dangerous. We are already capable of it though, so we have to do it wisely. So those are notions of coevolution that I think are not normally in social conversation about it. Over.
just to add to that, and kind of as I tend to do, I find myself kind of zooming out and giving a bigger picture lens, which is simply, Sam used the idea of conscious coevolution, that it implies and points exactly to a collective consciousness, or consciousness collectivity, and so I don't know if there's one question or one answer in a quick moment as we move forward, but what do you have, Sam, or anyone, quick comment on collective consciousness and how that's connected to it?
Yeah, I could comment on that. We do have some maps that we have, and some things that we have to consider, work that we've already done. And I noticed that there's gained interest last few weeks with people trying to focus. So something, I think this is great. I would like to show a little bit of the Trello board, but I don't know if they'll have time for that. But I did add one recently, and it was at the 2-year GCC retrospective, and it was about coexistence as a mean. So we were actually there looking for this. We have, a bunch of stuff on respectful conversations. GC still acts like a village square. Change the name to coexistence conversations. So, like there's some real crossroads here of what's going on at the GCC, because it's distinctly different from the other shows because it wants to do something. And so what doing is in the eye of the beholder, and we have to understand what each, like Sam was saying, what overlap we have in our co-visioning. So, I think paying attention to what we're doing is number one, and revisiting that memory. So I can offer that at some time. Maybe not now is the best time, but there's all kinds of gems in there. So it's that's how we farm the work that we're doing. And you're a great inspiration, Lauren, because you do a lot of work, and a lot of this could be joined up. And I know Charles does a lot of work as well. So, and Josh and people. So anyway, I'll just leave it there. And there's so many groups out there. One of the things I've been thinking about is how to portal to the different groups to get the next base camp's understanding of what they're doing, because
that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's all quite obvious as we try to understand and listen deeper. There's more to listen to. The more you know, the more you don't know. Anyway, I'll just shut up.
Yeah. I think Sam and then Alex.
Okay, another two-part note. This portaling to other groups, to me, is, for me, reminiscent of Doug's network of improvement communities. So in other words, if you have a networked improvement community that then networks out to other NICs, to me, what's crucial in that is whether this group adopts that group's practices or that group adopts this group's practices, and the extent to which that happens, I think, is greatly enabled by whether those practices are understandable and transparent and applied fairly, and in groups where somebody says, I'm a guru, here's the way to the truth, I find those very difficult to join because I don't understand how those things are created. That doesn't mean that they're not good. So a lot of it is that, my need to understand prevents me perhaps from benefiting from that particular program. But I think as we each try to scale this, either you're asking people to act on faith that, that guru really knows what that person's talking about, or we can do it based on transparency and understanding and, examples and stories and testimonials, which is what I prefer. So there's a definite preference in there. So for me, a lot of this really kind of almost feels painstakingly meta level kind of questioning is to get that kind of understanding. There's plenty of places you can go where people are already doing way more because they have way more structure, way more rules, way more plans, way more money, etc. Okay? That's okay. What I'm trying to figure out is how do we do that in a very transparent, very emergent way where you're not actually, compliant to some guru, but we're actually co-creating this together. So that is why I'm in this experiment. Over.
Alex? Oh, Alex? So, for number 6, there seems to be something to do with consciousness or emergence. But maybe consciousness not as like the hippie thing, but being able to be on the meta level, aware of what you're doing. How does that sound to everyone? Or should it be something like emergence, letting things emerge?
I'm aware of what I'm doing and have a fairly good understanding of me, whatever that is. Does that transpose to understanding what somebody else is doing? With my listening skills and my understanding skills, be able to get a grasp on their consciousness. Otherwise, I'm in agreement. The whole planet currently, I digress for a moment, but it's necessary with respect to what Sam said. Each and every avenue of exploration that could be explored is currently underway. And as Sam said, that there are lots of experiments out there with so many rules that you really can't make much progress. The fewer the rules, the better the progress. And if your consciousness can understand that we're here to make progress, rules kind of start disappearing, because it's difficult for somebody who says, you cannot offend me, so tell me what you have to say as succinctly, as clearly as possible, and allow me to understand what it is you're communicating. Have no fear. That is a very high level kind of communication, consciousness to consciousness, and an understanding that we should allude to develop. And that is what I said a long time ago. We need to remove the niceties that we put around ourselves of, I'll be offended if you say that. You can't say that to me, because it's not the accepted way of saying something.
Okay,
I would like to. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I? Okay. I have something specifically.
For like a minute, just hold the thought.
Okay, sure.
Alex?
Charles was before me, I think. But just quickly, what I was going to mention was there's things I know that I don't know. And if I can remember those when somebody else is telling me what they know, I can include their beliefs into the story of the fabric of what I understand about the universe, the singularity, and all that stuff. Because I don't know for sure why we're here or how we got here. But if I listen with my heart, I can get an understanding of where we should be going. Over.
Charles?
In regard to this dispensing of the niceties and so forth, Jaswinder, you were referring to, and also with a mind to collective consciousness, collectivity, of sort of any kind within the spirit, let's say, of collaboration, cooperation, and balance and harmony and flow, then I was not 100% focused throughout, so I could have missed, but I didn't hear in the sort of basic tenets, the agreement of equality, or it could come in different terms. Sort of, are we all, what's our status, our relative status as individuals, participants, and then coming together in a collective? Do we have as a ground, as a premise, that we're actually all equal, that we have equal voice, equal vote, and so forth? you know, without getting into sort of the voting, you know, governance of sociocracy or whatever. But what I'm, so as a kind of precursor, I would actually just offer my view that, you know, this kind of equality and balance would be a precursor to collective consciousness and collectivity in those ways I just mentioned. And so Jaswinder, it just was occurring to me, kind of reflecting back to a moment at the very beginning of the call, and there wasn't really time and space then, but I wanted to just shine a little light, perhaps, on this notion of mixed company, because you sort of touched me off just now when you said something about niceties and how, you know, in regard to language and kind of, again, for me, it's directly relevant to this idea of nonviolent communication, but you made a very specific observation, or maybe that's just how you see the world, perhaps, in terms of this mixed idea. I wonder if, you know, how you could relate those things or sort of reconcile those things over. Thanks.
Before this gets too far, I don't want to not let you respond, Jaswinder, but I actually want to finish these agreements and find some symbols for them. And we have 6 minutes left. And so,
Thanks, Lynn. Sorry. Well, we can hold that. I really wanted to place that, so we can come back to it.
So what I think has developed, what it seems like, and tell me if I'm wrong, for the first 5, it seems like we all kind of agree on that, on the first 5. On the 6th one, we have a few different ideas, I think, that have been developed. Maybe a quick feeling of there's a consciousness and transparency. There's as few rules as possible, or equality for everyone. What sounds like the most the essence of this group?
I think 6 minutes is going to be unfair to that topic. And thank you for bringing the focus back to the symbols. For me, because you bring it up, and Charles also brought it up about this whole equality thing, I'm going to be authentic and say we are not all equal. That doesn't mean that we're not entitled to food. That does not mean that we're not entitled to home shelters. We're not entitled to various things, but we are not all equal. It depends on what equal function you're choosing to apply at that point. Are we all equal in a right to life? Are we all equal to the right to, you know, $2,100 a month? Are we all equal to the right to be able to, you know, have a dog? You know, are we all equal?
Sam, allow me just to rephrase the context, which is within this group and within a conversation.
Yeah, I would still say the same thing. So this notion of equality is a motherhood and apple pie thing, which is, I think, okay. It gets us far, but it doesn't get us far enough. And I'll be authentic in saying that. Over.
Yeah, Stacy?
I forgot what your first one was, but the few rules as possible.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that sounds kind of right for this group.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It sounds right for this group. I think it helps describe this group, which has been labeled as anarchist.
But that also ties into the equality because it gives space for different people to move into where they feel comfortable engaging or how they feel comfortable. It leaves room for a natural emergence.
Okay, does anyone object to the agreement of as few rules as possible? Alex? Sam?
There's a need for rule, unfortunately, because without rules, human beings tend to get a little bit despicable. But the thing is, the symbols need to reflect somehow those rules. Well, it's helpful in symbolism if the actual shape and dimensions of that symbol have a representation that's directly associated with what the interpretation is supposed to be. Otherwise, you enter language difficulties, and that's another issue with symbolism. That's distasteful, in my opinion. So descriptive sentences below the symbols are important, in my opinion, especially for people who are newcomers and don't know what the group's all about.
Sam. I'm sorry, Sam has his hands raised. Can we,
Okay. So I actually like this preference for minimal rules, but as in most communities, some are necessary, particularly when people are evolving in those communities. And the simple examples are, just babies learning how to take care of themselves, or, people learning how to treat others. And at a certain level, whether it's in a family or in a society or in a martial art, eventually those rules drop away because you understand the reason for them and you actually just embody them. Okay? But until you get there, those rules will help you get there. So this preference by saying, let's just have as many rules as possible, doesn't recognize that evolution. It treats all people the same. And that's not what I believe, okay? We are all on different stages of that evolution. And so some of us need rules, some of us need fewer rules, okay? And we need to understand why those rules exist. Okay.
could we agree on no more rules than necessary? And I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the Einsteinian notion of, keep it simple, but no simpler.
Okay, Charles?
Minimum viable rules. But that just occurred to me. But what I wanted to say is going back to what Alex was referring to with the kind of descriptive text, let's say below the symbol or the sign, and also back to when Sam asked a question about, or the question came up, and I offered an idea for the recording, and that was sort of not culturally, translating, and then I thought about, and now I'll just offer, my updated thought. To that example would be the sort of typical record button with the red circle in the middle and the word, the abbreviation REC, rec. That's a kind of a universal sign, like on our phones or whatever devices for recording. It would be mostly universally recognized, let's say. So it would have a word, but it's sort of a fragment of a word that would signify across languages, let's say. And so one. Sorry?
What would that signify?
Oh, that example would signify recording, but I did have one more comment, but what's your question?
What symbol would that be for?
Oh, for recording, for recording.
Well, I think what Lauren is asking is what I'm asking is, how would we use that symbol? At what point or in what circumstance in a conversation would I want to hold up that symbol?
Right. Well, that might not be the best example to answer that question, but or it might if you want to start or stop a recording. There may be like anyway. Look, without getting into the detail of that, back on Alex's comment about descriptive text, I would suggest that visually, like that, I like that idea, but for like I would use like the Tom Atlee pattern, Weiss democracy pattern card format as a good example of it. Has an image. It's not, these are not specifically signs, but they have an image, a heading, like a name, a simple enough sort of bold headline, and then there is actually descriptive text and so forth. But so, and now just to land my plane here, it just occurred to me that actually what we're talking about that would probably have the most efficient impact is a meme. It's a meme, and it wouldn't have too much text. It would have sort of minimum viable text on a meme, maybe. But in any case, whatever the sign, there should be like a word or even a word fragment, but not much more, because visually that's the key thing, and that should try to also go between languages. So thanks. Over.
Okay, so I actually, it's 6:32, which means my time is up. So I just want to say, here are 6 things. Can we live with these 6 things so we can say that we accomplished our symbol thing today? Can we live with these until we can address them at some other time and change them if we so want?
By things, do you mean these are like 6 crucial ideas or beams, or do you actually want to get to an actual symbol? Because I don't think we've actually done that.
No, we haven't. I am saying, do we agree on these memes as, no. Does anyone object so strongly that they will be willing to derail our progress in choosing these together? Anyone?
See, that's the right way to ask a question. Yes. Active opt-out. Otherwise, there's agreement.
Okay, so I don't want to take up any more time because we've already taken up, an hour and a half. But if we so want to, later or now, then we can talk about symbols that might represent these. But I think this is the kind of what I wanted for today, at least to decide on.
Can I just quickly, I was carrying laundry down the stairs, but I want to just tag a comment onto this, just to come up with the name of like opt-out shaming. Over.
Introduce that as a meme. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that Charles, the symbol of recording for number 6, it kind of resonated with me because every time I hear this voice, any voice somewhere that says this conversation will be recorded for whatever purpose, and it kind of triggers in my mind, watch your language. A certain word trigger over there, and words can be libelous and slanderous, so careful what you say and how you say it. And one of my expletives which I use in those cases is sausage instead of swearing at people. So that real thing or a symbol that says it's being recorded is quite apt for number 6. I'm complete.
Mind games.
Alex, do you want to say something?
I did have something on my mind. It's going to be a pest and not deliberate. Something about ground rules, specific rules that are unchangeable and inflexible. So that's where there's an issue there. We don't want inflexibility. I'm reminded of that tree with when the wind blows, the branch sways in the breeze, and when the stronger wind blows, it bends. But if it's not flexible, it snaps off and breaks. But that's nature. Built-in flexibility allows those rules to avoid us having to ban somebody from the group because they broke a rule. We can educate instead of using severe tactics like that. Better to educate the person. Over.
Does anyone want to talk about
but
symbol?
at least make a meta comment. Sorry. You had said that we're past the 90-minute mark. So I just wanted to still see whether anyone wants to make a statement before we move into the retrospective.
Charles?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I did. I was muted and my hand was up before. So picking up quickly on Judge Winder, what you were just saying about the record button. It just kind of gave me an idea, and to frame that sort of maybe this whole idea of how these signs would be used within a conversation. And I'm not sure if this was already pointed to or implied, but maybe not. And so, well, okay, there could be 2 ways, let's say. I'll try to get this out quickly. So if I understand the way that we've been pointing to and implying is sort of in a given moment, somebody would sort of literally hold up a sign, and kind of make a signal, right? And that's sort of within the moment, synchronous of the synchronous flow of the conversation, and that would be a particular sort of mode of functionality of these signs. But another mode would be actually a sort of running set of symbols, which would fluctuate. Sort of some would come in and some would drop out, and some, sort of the total might gather cumulatively over the course of the conversation, so that there could be a kind of a board up in the corner of some kind that would kind of log these in real time and show at any given time the combination of the collection of symbols. And so the recording actually would be in there at any time that the recording is going on, for example. Over.
Okay, so shall we move into the retrospective? Does anyone else have anything else that they need to say? In other words, really have to actively get out before we get into retrospective. Going once, going twice, going thrice. Okay, we're moving into the retrospective. So hopefully you are now expecting the same 3 questions, which are just mostly used to get us on the record here. Okay, so the first question here is, oops, wrong button. Okay, polling. Here's the first question. Number 1, did we focus on a topic? I'll give you 20 seconds. 10 more seconds. 5 more seconds. I guess you were not voting by now, you're not gonna vote. Okay, here's 20 seconds. I'm ending the poll, and I'm moving to question number 2. Moderation. Did the moderator's moderation help keep us focused? I'll give you 20 seconds. We're at second number 5. Three more seconds. Okay, so I'm ending that one, and I'm going to question number 3, which is the co-creation question. Did we co-create with focus? 15 more seconds. 10 more seconds. 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm ending the poll. Okay. I'm actually bouncing around an idea where if you don't vote, then your vote is recorded as a no. Okay, but that's not going to apply today, okay? Because I did not make that clear first. Okay, so here's the first question. I'm going to share the results. 5 people voted yes, no one voted no on question number 1. Okay. And on question number 2, moderation, 5 people voted yes, nobody voted no. And on the third question, co-creation, 5 people voted yes, nobody voted no. Okay. All right. Talk amongst yourselves. Sorry.
You can make that 6 for co-creation because we are co-creating, and I didn't get to vote on that one. Interesting, 5 and 5, because I didn't vote for the first one because it was a maybe, and the second one was a yes. But so somebody didn't vote on the second one, and I didn't vote on the first one. Anyway, interesting. We should know who votes what, I think, since it's being recorded. Be interesting to see.
That's a different kind of vote. Yeah, we could do it that way. Okay. Any words on any of those responses other than Colin, who offered his first?
Yes, I could not see the poll and I couldn't see the results.
So I think that's a Zoom question because all I can do is, do things.
That's a Zoom question. That's a Zoom question.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just put words in Lauren's mouth. There's probably a little bit of, we didn't get to the symbols part of it. I'm hoping that that's not too frustrating for you.
It was pretty ambitious.
I think I would just go back to what Stacy came with right away as a response to the concept of it. There probably are universal ones that we can do well to at least reference. Over.
And I think I suggested before you can make your own and put them on a popsicle stick and hold them up. That would be a good way to get them voted in too. So, we can do it, co-evolving by, starting to use some if we find it useful. It is a really good topic about how to keep different conversations, the sentiment analysis. And I put in there when people have disagreements, like a couple of times today, it started to get a little dark. And if somebody had like a problem and they're getting triggered about something, maybe they could go off into a break-off room with somebody who they could talk it out with and not take the positive conversation off the rails, unless it's necessary to have that controversy. Because I find I would so love to resolve certain small disagreements, and it just seems to take forever in a group, where if we had an agreement to take it offline, and deal with it right then, like in a breakout room, that would be great. People would be probably less susceptible knowing that it would waste their time. Like in school, you don't want the teacher to say, so maybe you behave better knowing that you've got to back up your words if you get into an argument. Because, yeah, that's one simple one. Also, before we go, I'd like to show the GCC mind map and also different things that we took today and with Lawrence as well. It'd be nice to review those. Thanks.
So, somebody else?
I was just going to reflect the phrase, Colin. Maybe I misheard it, or I'm just kind of. So it sounded to me like, take it outside, and then I don't know. That could be just a brawl. I'm not sure if that's sort of what you allowed for in your statement.
Well, in the context of this group, that I think would be a stage 6 triggering, where, when it gets to there's different levels of triggering. I think Doug identified a 4th level triggers when it gets pretty serious. So, it's being disruptive at that point. So, the group could say, could you guys, go into a breakout room and resolve that? I think that would be a good expected behavior, unless it's something that's actually, necessary. A lot of times it isn't. I think knowing that could be a possibility could quell the possibility of those kinds of things happening.
So, apologize for being a slightly off topic, but I'm going to come to it a different way, okay? Let's suppose that we are all black belts in reading body language, listening to nuances of inflection of voice, looking at whether or not people are triggered or not triggered, or listening or not listening, or happy or not happy, or engaged or not engaged. Let's suppose we're all black belts at that, okay? And now let's imagine today, where maybe some of us are white belts, some are yellow, some are blue, some are purple, some are brown, some are red, some are blah, 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 okay? But that we had some assistance. Notably, perhaps around everyone's face, we had a little indicator. Sam is happy, Sam is sad, Sam is mad, Sam needs to go pee, whatever that indicator is, okay? And suppose we had those just always there. And as my state changes, the indicator changes, okay? It seems like, that would help some of us who are not all at black belt, and I'm certainly saying I'm at black belt right now at any of that stuff, right? I'm barely at yellow belt right now. So I'm trying to figure out, is that the kind of indication we want? Whereas, if we actually are so triggered as to say, I got to hold this up right away, right now, because I have so much trigger. It's such a, departure from the typical mode. That's going to be a very strong signal. And I was wondering whether or not we wanted strong signals, or whether we just wanted to understand the undulations, of various different signals all, coming in as streams, persistently. That's one way of modeling this, is to see how close we can get to that without having the speaker feel like, oh man, somebody just really doesn't like what I'm saying and I lost my train of thought, versus, any other reaction to it. So I'm just positing those as models for how we think about this and how we might agree.
There might be a couple of those, and one of those would be to hold up a "not what I said," because that, I heard 3 or 4 people say that today. It's happened to me. It's happened to Stacy. Somebody says something you said and it's not what you said. So that would be a good one.
So I'll just say right now
Can-
that one of the things that I cannot see is I cannot see when Colin wants to speak. So I can see when Charles is holding up his hand. I can see when Stacy's holding up his hand.
Yeah, thank you.
Interjects, Colin, I'm going to use that
And
word.
Carlin, I'm not sure if you were watching my hand being up for a long time.
So that's a form of signaling that we're
Can
reading
I?
right now.
Yeah, I have something really relevant to say, exactly taking off from what Sam said. So can I speak, or does somebody need to before me?
Please do, but I'm pretty sure I just triggered Colin.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, so allow me just to say thank you, Sam, for brilliantly offering the example of the different colored belts in terms of training, expertise, sensitivity, and all those things that you articulated perfectly as exactly representing the kind of mixed company we're in. And then I would like to, maybe before I have to go shortly, and I'm not sure if now is a good moment, perhaps to go back to the question that came up in regard to Jaswinder's statement about mixed company. And I don't know how to articulate it or focus it better in this moment, except that I'm sensing this, feeling this as a bit of a thorn in my side, personally, and perhaps in the group, even if it's latent, in terms of this, what was the phrase, sort of, small things that come up that can kind of be dealt with quickly or something like that. So I would, if that makes any sense, I would suggest that, if we could.
I want to welcome Kusela, not to derail you, Charles, but Kusela, thanks for joining us. We're in I think the 110th minute of a 2-hour conversation, but we're glad you joined us and glad that you have some curiosity. Some of us will probably stay beyond the top of the hour, but I just want to let you know that we've been going for about 110 minutes already. And Charles, my response to you is I'm not clear exactly what the suggestion was that you were talking about.
Yeah, it was a little messy. Thank you for reflecting that back. Well, one thing is, I'm sort of, okay, I'll just try to be efficient and direct and say, Jaswinder, I challenge this idea of mixed company in the sense that you meant. But again, I jumped right in my mind to when you said these different belts with the, martial arts, Sam, that metaphor is perfect. And in fact, it does speak in rich dimension to what's going on here in terms of the mixedness or the inequalities, if you will, in those particular ways, in those sort of rich and deep ways. So maybe that's enough for me right now. I think that I'm trying to go, and this could kind of sprawl into a much more open, extended, discussion, debate, even argument in terms of gender roles and so forth. So I'll just place it here, and sort of at some point when the space and time come, then I look forward to hearing about that if I'm not there.
So just, I see your hand up, but may I derail the conversation for 2 minutes slightly, just to ask Kusala or Kuusala, or however you pronounce your name, to introduce yourself. And we were really curious where you're from and what your time zone is, and what draws you to this conversation, and what you were kind of expecting. Are you able to give us a little introduction like that?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. It's morning here, and I'm here because Joshua invited me to say hello to all of you. He wanted me to say hi. So I'm here from the Ancient Oak Retreat headquarters right now.
Hello!
Ah!
So I just wanted to say hi to everyone.
Okay.
I've been telling her about everybody, so I just wanted to pop in and introduce, and my friend Mark was here, but he went pee, so otherwise he would be here.
Okay, thanks.
That's all. I just wanted to say
Don't want
hi.
to interrupt, just
have
wanted
a
to make sure.
background then on GCC, okay? All right, good. All right, then, sorry to derail that a little bit. Please feel free to say whatever you would like at any point, Kusala. How do you pronounce your name, by the way?
Kusela.
Kusala, okay, all right. Hey, Jaswinder, thanks for your patience. I recognize you had your hand up before I asked Kusala to introduce herself. So do you have a statement?
Oh, okay. I'm just, Charles is here as far as I can see. It's not serious. I am
I am.
well aware. I am well aware of other people's trigger points, and I do try not to upset their trigger points. Also, it is also, it's also kind of incumbent on each of us to try and lift other people higher than they already are. And using Sam's analogy of the color of belts, we should all be black belts by now, but we're not. And if we don't increase our understanding, and if we don't, for want of a better word, push each other to a better understanding, when are we going to get there? So yes, I do prod, I do poke, I do like to ascertain who's thinking what level are they at? Can that person be helped any further? This is a question I pose. Are you aware of your own memory limits? Do you forget things? The amount of stuff we've discussed in the last 2 years, how much of it is still in your mind? Have you thrown it out and go back to base camp and say, well, that's the rule I had 2 years ago. It's good enough then. I'm keeping it now. Or even 2,000 years ago. I'm complete.
Allow me just to frame it again, which I put in the chat. The question came up exactly around languaging. Over.
Stacy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, and this kind of ties in a different way, but what I had been wanting to say is that it really depends on what the purpose of the signal is. Sometimes people get a signal, they don't care. You know, I mean, if I'm speaking and I get a signal that somebody looks bored or lost, I care. I'm going to change. There are other people that could care less. They're on their mission to say what they want to say, and that's how they're going to do it. Also, there are times, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of narcissists where they won't come straight out, but they will do something to signal, and I purposely choose to ignore it. So it depends why we want the signal and how we're going to use it. To go back to just kind of move a little bit to this whole thing with Jaswinder and Charles, the good thing, at least I know when I deal with Jaswinder, because that gender, that mixed company thing might hit me too. But I can then say to Jaswinder, which I have in the past, on this exact topic, and he listens and we talk, and I'm trying to speak to what Jaswinder, and I agree with him, says that we need to navigate those waters when we get triggered and how we deal with them. And there is something to be said about being able to say exactly what you mean. And then go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Stacey. Fortunately, the opposite gender wasn't triggered at all today. The two people I triggered today, three, are all males. That's Alex,
Yeah, that's right.
And Charles, really.
Yes, I was triggered. Correct.
Again.
Can I mention this fact about universal language? Because if you don't have an understanding that we're all using the same language, people get bogged down in misinterpreting symbols. Those symbols have got to be universal. Well, we live on one planet. We're one species of hominoid. We're all human beings living on one planet. If we have a universal language, we understand we've got a greater chance of getting out of this thing alive. So reduce complexity by having a universal symbolism over understood by people who speak all number of languages.
I think the more important point, and I would love to have this conversation somewhere else where there's time to go into it, because I want to hear more about why Jaswinder would say that, or what are the specifics that led him to that conclusion. That's how we have to go deeper. And unfortunately, in the middle of one thing, we don't want to shift our focus to go into that.
Okay, so let me suggest, Lauren, that you consider one of the things that's come up in the last 20 minutes is I'm triggered symbol. Okay, whether it's I'm minorly triggered or I'm majorly triggered. Okay, that might be a kind of a useful, very, very crude kind of signaling until we get more sophisticated about that. Charles, you have your hand up.
Interesting. So I'm chewing a little bit. Interesting semantic observation here. That could be a clue to transformation and shifting the energy into new paradigm, maybe if we're lucky, or toward that transformation, which is in the word trigger. And I think there's a lot more context and background in terms of looking at triggers in this conversation or space, or I haven't sort of looked at the, research around and critical thinking around triggering and so forth. Clearly, I think in terms of, our all speaking common English language and the connotation of how we're using the term in a verb sense, as a verb, and then thinking about but also a noun sense as a thing to, that does the triggering in the negative connotation sense. However, I'm just reflecting on that term trigger, and generally, okay, if you think about trigger of a gun is like a thing to do violence and worse, and so that's certainly negative. But in a system, in a mechanical system, for example, and others can speak much better on that, I'm sure, here and elsewhere. Yeah, it's sort of it's very similar to a signal. The signal has an effect of triggering in a neutral sense. And so if we can kind of get to that neutral sense of triggering, and then even go into the positive connotation sense of triggering positivity of whatever kinds. Over.
Okay, Colin has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's a little precarious, my setup here, and I don't mean to talk over people. It's good we have a little bit of time to talk. So yeah, specifically with some upcoming suggestions of conversations that we could have, especially towards what Stacy was saying, as far as being able to make the right space to have that conversation, trying to squeeze it in randomly in our sessions, especially when it's not a core conversation. So I have a list of 4 possible conversations we can have already, and things that have happened, and things that we could plan out a little bit more if we see that that's worth having. If not, it takes time. Pick the more important conversations. And in that light, I would like to do a little share with the barn raising there. Okay, that's yeah, here's one I did recently, where I put my 3 different kinds of main maps up here for my memory projects. And these are people up here, I'm going to start tracking like what their memory projects actually are for this dynamic knowledge repository, and different things. We have agreements, we got the smart people problem, deep grokking, which is listening with, and we got correlation, and some interesting social ideas there. Just trying to pick out a few things that aren't as crazy as this map. And this is just the barn raising section down here, the GCC map. And this little box here is today from what Lauren gathered. 5 things, 6 things, but we have all kinds of others. And if you go up here a little bit more, here's the list of some of our dynamic artifacts. There's Lauren's Miro, there's the treble, Sam's how-to index, workflowing maps, and different things we tried. This is Stacy's definition game that was going to get started. And we have a whole bunch of different things that we've been doing. And just to quickly, a little bit more here. I'm showing this on a long screen, so I don't know how much of this you can see. But there's all kinds of things that we've already started that you could say is forgotten in our memory, or was it really important enough to put here? So I say as we bite and chew off more things, we should probably reconsider what it is we already have, or what we're trying to do. And that's all I have to say about that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Colin. So anybody who's constrained to the 2-hour limit is, please recognize that you will not insult us by leaving. I'm going to stay as long as people want to stay here because I think this is a really rich conversation. Also, sitting next to Kusala is someone new that we haven't met yet before. So would you like to introduce yourself and what got you other than Joshua?
Could I just, I don't know, I'm trying to go, and I think I was wondering if Lauren, you might very quickly wrap up and sort of point again back to the profiles or anything else in terms of zooming out. Can we do that just before we go into other mode?
Can I quickly
Possibly?
share my screen? Is that okay?
Okay, we'll save the follow-up for later.
Okay, so this is what we have so far for those who haven't seen the map yet. So first week we did the individual profiles. Now we also have right here the group profile of why people come here. And now we have these symbols, and since we didn't have time, I just made up some symbols the best that I could. And feel free to comment on those. Yeah, so that's kind of what we've done. And of course, these can be changed. They're just little symbols on a Miro board, but we did them and they're something. And I think they reflect pretty well on what we're doing.
Thanks. There's certainly another conversation at least, or several in that. Okay.
What color would you use for those symbols? Could you use some nice colors?
Can we leave that conversation till later? Okay. Unless everyone objects.
I was just going to open up if anyone had any quick comment on any of that. Anyone else?
Okay, so I'll do a quick comment. I like the focus of trying to get to some key, I'm not sure whether to call them symbols, but some key themes or memes. I do think that that's a circling, but it's also a lower altitude circling. So I like that. I like the mention of the agreements because I think that's another lower altitude visit to that particular theme. And I like that we're, in a sense, loosely moving in a direction towards co-visioning and co-evolution and some notion around agreements. So I appreciate all of that. I don't expect any of that to happen in a single conversation. Clearly it's happened over 2.5, 3 years. So I think this is a good major step actually over. Stacey?
Just real quick, I would love to see like a push pin symbol where, like, again, this conversation between Jaswinder and Charles, if we could put a push pin in that we could at the end go back to it or start a new conversation, because I think that's a great conversation and an important one to have.
Okay, and before other people leave, the other meta comment I'll make is next week, I believe Kayla is on. So Kayla will bring, I believe it's Tanaloa dialogues and maybe some dancing. No? Yes? So we'll be with Kayla's moderation and focus next week. Okay?
Right.
Any blurb you want to give us about that session next week, Kayla?
So yeah, it's basically the Talanoa dialogue, and it's a dialogue that was used in Fiji, for just hundreds of years between the chiefs and the community to openly discuss any issues and problems you have. And you start off storytelling. So like, for instance, this one, I was really thinking about, using what's happening here in the United States as far as race is concerned, and, all the violence and protest that's going on. So each person has a personal story to tell that relates to that particular topic. And it's a sense of just kind of listening with empathy. So you're drawing on personal experience and not experience from the media, just personal experience, a story. You go around and you tell your story, and then after that you just come to some type of a resolution. But the idea sometimes isn't the resolution. The idea is just to listen. So what I was thinking is starting off with the Talanoa dialogue, but also co-creating with something that's, more to our modern times, the use of technology. That's what I've got in mind. It's what's been percolating for the past 2 weeks. So
Awesome. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, me too.
And bring friends if you like.
Oh yeah, I've got a ton of friends on board. I'm hoping, if I do kind of go forward with the racism here in the United States, I would like to bring up some cops.
Very important. Very important.
I've got friends in the media. See what their take on it is, and just a lot of my personal friends are interested in coming. So yeah, got at least a dozen people interested.
Awesome. Alex, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so I was checking out with this thought about no matter what our deepest beliefs are, we either have this life, we either reincarnate into another life, or we exist in another life somewhere else, in another dimension. It's there's several different beliefs, but the thing is, what the fact we've got to accept is the fact that we aren't in another life. We're here in this one now, and we need to work on our shit, get our shit together, and work on our problems in this life. That means coexisting, no matter what race we are, what color we are, and being able to deep listen means being able to accept that other people sometimes have differing opinions, and that's okay. Over.
Yeah, that reminds me of what the doctors have in a Hippocratic oath, and what lawyers have in hopefully some kind of profession that they do profess. I'm wondering whether we are able to co-create something similar around coexistence, around co-visioning, around co-evolution. Tees, you had your hand up. Okay.
No.
All right. Any last thoughts? I'm keeping this open as long as people have thoughts. And if we're all deadlined, I'll shut the system down.
There's movement in the other picture.
Yeah, I think Mark has his hand up.
Oh,
Hello, guys.
Hey, good to meet you.
This is Reverend. This is the Reverend Mark right here. Is the Reverend. Oh, he wanted to be. A really good introduction. Very, very nice to meet you all. There's something really interesting that was mentioned about incarnation, or from the aspect of potential, or even why we are here. If what's really interesting about our name of our species, human, the name comes from the element of humic mass, dirt, soil, life-giving. And in many ways, the function that we have in life, in the end, is pretty much mass. We turn into dirt eventually. But while we're here, the really interesting aspect of our potential is to move a certain level of consciousness forward, backwards. One could say that racism is absolutely an aspect of backwards, but at the same time, us sort of waking up to the reality that we're, all sort of connected, and this skin color that we have really means nothing. In the end, it's how we treat the very object that we're, cohabitating. But for us, when it comes down to the ramifications of who we are, it's really a matter of choice and influence. I influence you, you influence me. We all have a way of affecting choice for one another. Even my own actions, wearing this hat, has some sort of, ramifications, even on a micro level. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in there. All of us coexist, and all of us have a sort of responsibility, especially when it comes down to everyday actions, even where we put our perception. So just wanted to throw that out there. Also, I agree with the whole aspect of incarnation. So
Mark and Josh, and is it Tunella? I forgot your name. Excuse me, Tunella.
Priscilla.
Crusella.
You
So,
can
but
do.
Joshua, I was calling you before, or I was wishing that you hadn't cut out when you did at the beginning, because any and all three of you, I would just love your quick snap definition of deep listening, if you might.
Yeah, I was listening so deeply. I was getting these guys coffee and I turned off the connection, but I was psychically here on the call. So that's how deep listening I was going. I was going so deep that it was through the internet waves, through my brain, like Neuralink style. So that was my definition of deep listening, is a psychic connection where we don't even turn on Zoom. Like sometimes I feel you, Charles, in Switzerland, and I'm not being sarcastic, I'm being serious. Real deep meditation listening, like deep. But the only reason I cut out this morning is to get these guys coffee and take care of them and check in with my mom. So
absolutely.
But that, oh, you're muted, Charles.
Muted, my good sir. Muted, brother.
Sorry. Just 20, 30 seconds from each of you, if you're interested to offer something of your view on deep listening.
Go ahead, Gisela.
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. So I only hear out of one ear, my left ear, so I do have to pay attention. But it really is, for me, my deep listening, because I know it is one of my special powers, is I am listening with my heart without judgment. That's all.
For me, it's to bear witness, using an old religious term, to go and observe something without the need of self, within the present moment, and then the very end, to think about it and to perhaps have a sort of unique perspective to share about it. But for listening and for being present, it's very much on lines of to bear witness. That's how I would interpret it.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Well, with that, I'm complete, guys. I'm going to take my leave. Much love to everyone, and Lauren, you rock. That was, for me, it's great, isn't it? Really kind of pushing the envelopes and groundbreaking. Thanks again.
Thanks to both of you for pushing this forward and taking 3 rounds at this. And I feel, by the way, that this is almost a re-emerging of what PK was with barn raising / foundation laying here. So I like that melding.
That's the practical knowledge ecology, for those that don't know what that means. And that's a kind of long story in a way, but a group that Lauren founded, and that we did in a way out of the GCC, and with similar motivations and practices that we ran for half a year or so with a lot of consistency every week.
And my gratitude for everyone here for participating, because I didn't have too much of a plan, and you really helped me. And thanks. This isn't, of course, just for the GCC, but basically setting a framework for a network of, what are the NICs, Sam?
The network improvement communities.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope this can set some kind of precedent, and this helps for me to develop a methodology for actually doing this for several groups, so that we can start to visualize who these groups are and what are the connections between them, and develop new tools for us to navigate our own networks. Yeah. So thank you so much for participating. There's been a lot of developments. We just talked to Christina Bowens last night, and who's developing new software for doing these network communities. And so I think things are starting to kick off, and really with the Murmurations project as well, there's software now to kind of decentralize mapping of communities and groups. So I think we may actually be getting someplace.
Years to get some traction on this. But by
If
the
we
way,
could just get together, actually, I mean, that's the whole thing.
yeah.
Like they're still over there, and we're over here, and not
Mhm.
quite there. But yeah. So go ahead, Sam.
I wanted to at least explain that the term NIC, the Network Improvement Community idea, was Doug's term for this like 52 to 60 years ago. Okay, this is when he introduced this thing in 1968. Today, people might call it change makers. We might call it the woke community, if you like that word. So
No.
that's precisely to poke at some of it.
It's way too hipster, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're on track.
but Doug really thought of this, and probably even before that, other terms are being used in communities and villages and whatever. But at least we could all. This is part of the idea of diction. How do we actually combat the common sense, really the common meaning, not the obvious senses of language. We assume that we're using English, but English has so again, a pitch for leaning into that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's one of the. Hello. Do they still remember me, Lauren? They're older now. Hi.
Do they remember me?
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Oh,
See you.
in harmony.
That's
Okay, guys, I'm out. I'll see you soon. I hope.
Okay, Charles. Thanks
Okay.
again. Have fun.
Charles.
Great weekend.
Weekend. Enjoy Zurich.
I love you.
Bye. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Very good meeting you all. And re-meeting you all. Colin, you're awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Sam, did you have a good meeting? I just wanted to check in because I missed most of it. Was it? How was your feelings on it?
Of Lauren and Charles, and so Lauren did guide us towards identification of things that could potentially become symbolic, and she did show about 6 symbols that she came up with out of our conversation that she just created on the fly. And I think that's going to be very good for future conversations. The idea
cool.
It could be that if we're in conversation like this and none of us is in charge and we're all sort of co-creating, do we want to hold up a sign that says land your plane? Or do you want to hold up a sign that says I'm triggered? Or do we want to hold up a sign that says you've been going for 17 minutes? All these kind of indicators where right now we just sort of seethe and get distracted and disengage and lean away. We're trying to figure out how we can actually send these signals without directly impacting the person who's speaking, but communicating something useful. We're trying to figure that out.
I was going to say we need to get Dove back from Nepal because he's not able to come on at these times in Nepal, but he's been really changing the meeting spicer, and that would be a nice third addition to the meeting spicer with those symbols inside of it.
Well, he does come to some of the unblockings on Sundays, which are at this time. It's curious.
I wonder what time it is in Nepal right now. Okay, Google, what time is it in Nepal?
India is like 12.5 hours away. Is it same as India or is it different?
The time in St. Paul, MN is 12:21 p.m.
St. Paul.
No. See, Google thinks we're in the protests in Minnesota.
No. We're in the pro.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I was going to say, Colin, Mark was blown away by your maps, and so was Qcella. They were just enthralled and pushing their head into the screen.
Yeah.
Whoa, what is it? Whoa.
This is a mosaic on the Getty. Oh my gosh. It's one of those.
It's crazy. May I request a small little flute session if you have it with you? I assume you do.
Wait, is that a flute or is that a...
Sorry. It's my time to shine. Okay. Which flute? Choose a number, 1 or 2.
Do you have a shakuhachi?
It's up to you.
Go with how you feel. How you feel.
It's always going to be 2.
Do either of you guys know Alexander Laszlo?
Go ahead, come to the side. Ready? Here, you play. I'll do the Tai Chi. Oh, you'll do this. Come to the side.
You're doing Tai Chi while I do flute? Okay.
Note to you, Mark. One of my very good friends, Alexander Laszlo, also travels always with the shakuhachi.
Oh, that's a man I would love to jam with. One of my favorite things to do is to go into sacred places and play this, and then serve.
If I ever get there to your ranch, Joshua, I may bring my violin then.
No.
You better.
Yeah, please, let's do it.
Thanks.
Or
That was wonderful. That was wonderful, Mark.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Colin.
I will bring my flute to every meeting, and if you request it, I will play it. So,
Just a question for you again, Kusala and Mark. Are you guys like residents there, or are you visiting for a while, or is there a workshop in progress? What's the context here?
recharging, coming out here to recenter and to feel human again. So cosmic revival. Yeah. So very much a holy place.
Yeah.
I'm here on Kamado Island in Washington State. So I almost self-quarantined in middle of 2016 myself.
Yeah.
We've got very few people on this island. The island is, I think, about, if I'm not mistaken, about it's at least 2 or 4 times bigger than Manhattan. But we've got 1% the population of Manhattan. We got 15,000 people here on this island. And so it's relatively sparse. It's green, blue. There's eagles here that come, every day in the winter. And there's some really good, if you just go 300 feet down the cliff, there's a bunch of crab right there. Anyway, so that's what we're
move that. I gotta get out of the way. There it is.
Yeah. You're grabbing.
I think Cusel has a thought. Cusel is thinking something.
Yeah. It's coming out of her head right now.
Well, there's one that just floated between the two of you right there.
Oh, really?
That's what happens when he plays the flute.
Hey, Mark, I told you that also does Polynesian dance. So I believe there's at least 4 different musicians / artists / dancers here right now.
Aren't you all musicians? I think we're all musicians.
I don't know about just when they're
young.
Not me. I'm not.
I used to direct a children's orchestra, Mark, in Palo Alto, 10 to 12-year-olds, So I used to do that and used to help with a chamber music workshop in San Luis Obispo. And
that's beautiful.
And directed a few orchestras here and there. Started the
beautiful. That's
waltz tradition at Stanford way back.
At Stanford?
You got Cusel's attention.
I went there.
You went to school there?
Yeah.
Nice. Really cool. Too bad. We could be meeting up at the homecoming if it were still happening.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
When did I graduate? 2003.
Yeah, see, I graduated there with a bachelor's in 1980. So it was like 40 years ago I got my BS in mathematics there. Where were you in your freshman dorm?
I was at the Donner Party. Stern.
I was Lafayette.
Oh, okay. Right on.
By the lake.
I finished up in Okada in the Bat Cave.
Oh, okay. So now we're talking references.
Yeah.
Stanford.
Farm time. It's a nice place. You guys should visit.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I worked with them, Sam, I was going to say I worked with them with the microbiome. They were helping us to do a lot of research with the Learning Center.
Okay.
So
I don't know how
really
much-
good. I have a lot of respect for that institution. I don't have as much for my former institution, UCSB, as much as I do for Stanford and UCSD. Those are my two favorite universities in California.
Well, you know, Mark and Kusala, if Joshua may have mentioned this, we're in about probably a 3-month experiment of each person focusing and bringing a topic for focus, and also bringing moderation experience, styles, tools, techniques, you know, methods. So if you'd like to bring a topic and some moderation to help us focus on that so that we can co-create something out of the session, you're welcome to take one of these sessions. It's a 90-minute forum with a 30-minute retrospective after that. So we've talked about things like symbology. We talked about religion. We've talked about deep listening. We've talked about, and it's fascinating what people want to bring, and yet we still find ways to network it all into core memes that we've been talking about for about 3 years. And Keela's going next week. She's going to bring the Tanaloa dialogue, as you heard. So if either of you, and even Josh hasn't taken his turn yet. So if any of you want to take that opportunity.
Sam, you remember Moron Soul from Israel?
Yeah, Del Sol Bravo, right? Sobroza.
Rosa. So she has been talking my ear off about when are we going to get to the conversation of what's going on in Brazil. And she's very concerned after the G10, or was it the G whatever summit? She met all the Native Americans down in Brazil, and she's been just communicating with them daily. And I asked her to grow a network. She started with 2 people. Now she's got 924 on Facebook for Be the Project. So she really wants to talk about Brazil. So I gave her my time. I don't know if you guys have connected yet, but I just talked to her.
Immediately contacted her right after you said that, and she did not take this opportunity. And she didn't actually get back to me about whether or not she'd like to do a future one. I did ask her, so I did follow up on your question. Okay.
Yeah, she's sort of all over the map trying to get the message out about Brazil, and no one's listening. So I think she's losing her mind.
Yeah, I mean, she's welcome to bring that topic.
I'll follow up.
Just so you guys know,
Yeah,
Keela's going to bring a relatively benign topic called racism. She's going to talk about that. You know, I think she was considering.
Well, she's under the belief that, I don't know if you guys know this. I'd be curious to ask the group, but Bolsonaro, I can't pronounce his name properly, is an actual full-fledged Nazi. And I don't know if that's rumor, conspiracy theory, or it's reality that he's actually from the lineage of the Nazis that hit out in Brazil in World War II. So I'd like to know if that's real, because if that is, that's a very serious thing that we should be concerned about, is having Nazis be the head of Brazil, because that's dangerous.
That's going to be genocide.
So, not to bring conspiracy theory, I have not researched it myself, so I don't know if it's true, but I would like to research that. I'd like to know if that's real, because it's freaking me out a little bit. So
yeah, I just heard a bunch of stuff about that too. Was that Joe Rogan, or what was that on, Josh?
I heard it from Moron Soul. It was on Moron Soul's lips from Israel, so I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw it, but I remember it made an impact on me. Maybe I was reading it in a Medium article. I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, if it's a rumor, Colin, I'd like to dispel that rumor, and if there's some truth to it, I'd like to shine a light on that and just make sure that, not that Nazis are the most evil thing in the world. I'll play Yahtzee with a Nazi any day, but I don't want them to control my power, or to start raising their ugly heads again, and hey, let's turn that swastika from the beautiful Tibetan, Indian beautiful power and flip it back around. Let's not do that again.
We don't have to go overseas. I mean, we've got somebody in the White House who, according to an ex-wife, used to have Hitler's book on the nightstand. Okay, is that close enough to home? To me, that's already close enough to home.
Exactly.
Whoa,
Sam.
whoa. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Darn. Fucking Stacy's mind up. Sorry, Stacy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I mean, look, everybody here knows I am not a fan of Donald Trump. But if having a book on your nightstand is going to be what we use to judge somebody, that's a real problem.
It's not the only thing, but
I gotta agree.
Well, no.
Was
Can
it
I
a book or
interrupt,
was
Sam?
it a symbol of life?
I understand, but part of the challenge I see, especially on social media, is that we're very quick to jump to conclusions because somebody's been seen with somebody else or somebody was reading something. And I just think we have to be mindful of not falling into that trap. I would hate to be judged by my ex-husband. I would hate to be judged because I was researching something or I was interested in something. There has to be more to it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I
think there's plenty to it. There's a lot more to it.
I don't disagree. But when we do that, it also turns other people off. We have a credibility problem in our country. We don't even believe. We tend not to believe something if it's coming from somebody we don't agree with. And, that's a problem that we have, that I don't remember having this kind of a problem before Mr. Fake News Trump got into office.
Stacey, do you mind if I just, so we don't go into the rumor mill and the social media discrediting Trump and all that, I've been reading up on his uncle, the guy that was the scientist, and the work that he did. And I'm not going to say anything about it. You can do your own research on it, but then also reading up on Donald Trump's dad. So it's one thing to discredit someone out of rumor mill. It's another thing to study history of how did Donald Trump's dad, who's named Drumpf, not Trump, he changed his name, how did he make all his money that he gave to his little son and kept him out of the military because his little cankle or whatever his injury was? But I'm just saying, let's actually look at history, not rumors, not, George Bush's grandfather was a blah, blah, blah.
Collaborator, yeah.
But actually the actual history of actual documents. And the one thing I'll just bring up is there's a thing in America called the Freedom of Information Act. And it's really powerful. If you want information, we still have that freedom. And it does shine a lot of things to light. So we don't have to pretend out of some meme that we heard on the internet. We can actually go back to documents and request them from the United States government, and they have to legally give them to us.
Unless
if they've been over a certain amount of time.
Right, but all I'm
sorry,
saying
Sam?
is, all I wanted to say is that by association is not enough. If I hear it, and I have heard plenty out of his own mouth to help me to get to those conclusions, but by association is not the way I want to do it. I mean, if you heard some of the views that my own mother says, I don't want to be judged by her views. And yet she's my mother, yet I love her dearly.
I feel you on that.
Yeah. I said, Josh, I agree with the FOIA advice. That's why it's so alarming that so much data and so many databases are, by some reports, being destroyed by this current administration. And they're being pulled offline. And, they're not allowed to be published. That's what's dangerous about this administration, among other items. The fact that you can ask for,
I just wanted to signal.
They're going to say, hey, it doesn't exist. We deleted it.
Yeah, I just wanted to signal to the group. I was working with Robert Best yesterday, and he was telling me something very fascinating, is the Internet Archive has been partnering with Wikipedia because when the citations come up, they often go to either broken links or to just links to a website, not the exact quotation in the book. So there's a big push right now to get all of the citations to actually go backwards with the Internet Archive to the exact thing they're citing. And then a big push to scan every book that was ever written and go directly to the paragraph that it was coming from. So in other words, citing the sources in Wikipedia is a huge push, and I'm all for that. I'm really on board on that.
By the way, that was a very Engelbartian idea because Engelbart believed that nothing should be deleted. You can revise things,
Yes.
but nothing should be deleted. And that's why I believe in making sure that, if we have the record, yes, I can say something stupid, and I have many times, but that's not grounds for me to say, hey, please delete that because I said something stupid. I did it. I'm accountable for it. Okay.
Yep.
It's a public matter of public record. So too bad. I got to shape up and do better next time. So the fact that we have this material now means that, hey, we can layer on top of it. But just as you say, references should always land, and nothing should ever come to a 404, because, oh, geez, I was embarrassed by this.
Absolutely.
I got insulted and therefore I cursed somebody out. That's fact. That happened, Anyway, that's part of
and I'm working hard. Yeah, I would love to work with you, Sam, on like a very serious project, which is we reached Internet 2.0 stretchability to the point where it snapped. And it is time to go to 3.0. And Sir Tim Berners-Lee did create Solid that nobody's using over at MIT. But this next level of the internet, I feel, is a very clear delineation between this is being recorded, this is not recorded, this is on the record, off the record, what's public, what's not public. And Facebook did a pretty good job of that about 7 years ago, but they didn't do an education campaign to let people know how to use their platform and what it means to be in a private community that posts publicly, and what is the off and on switch between on the record and off the record. And I think ever since the internet was invented, we've never had the laws that really understood it the same way we do. Inside of your home, you can shoot someone that comes in, but outside of your home, there are stand your ground rules in certain states. In other words, we haven't delineated the laws of cyberspace yet. And that's why the Electronic Frontier Foundation is so close to my heart. It is time to start legislating the things that we never got around to because they moved too fast. But now that they've sort of solidified, like Twitter's been around, I think for 12 years now, I think like officially since 2007, 2008, in the public domain. I mean, it was around for a few people, but it is time now after 10 years to start to put the laws into a clear delineation where we all know what they are. And that's what I think the society has gotten sick because we haven't been able to agree what the laws are of how you can communicate in a public forum. Meaning if everyone went to their public square and started yelling at each other, fuck you, you're wrong, I didn't say that, you're a racist, it would just become a riot, and then the police would clear us all out of the public square. If we did that on Facebook, half of the people on Facebook would just get cleared out of Facebook and pepper sprayed on their threads.
Depending on what group you're in, it really happens.
Well,
anyway, I didn't mean to rant, but it's just very emotional for me. I've been thinking about that for 20 years and just waiting for people to have enough experience to actually listen and hear that it is time to regulate cyberspace in a way that is good for the common good and for the laws that we want to create.
So I think I would agree with
I'm complete, sorry.
I think that one of the things that came up earlier in today's discussion was this minimum viable rules idea. In other words, only enough to actually make sure that we can coexist and conduct ourselves in a kind of a civil and just and peaceful way. And I'm always leery of governments being the arbiter of what that is. And so I would really like for us to come up with what we think is a socially acceptable, kind of a social contract way of coexisting online. One of the ones being, let's really find out, how we feel about truth. And let's really figure out how we can coexist online, without damaging each other. So those, I think, are fundamental. That's where I would start. And people who don't respect truth and say, oh, well, it's true for me and it's not an absolute truth, those are excuses, okay? And I think that has to be dealt with very, very clearly and very, very cleanly. Otherwise, people think it's a binary world. Either it's true or not true. If it's not true, then I can do whatever the hell I want. The world is not that simple.
Well, thank you for doing this work, Sam. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to introduce my friends because I've been talking about, what we're doing here at the GCC. And I always see Charles on other groups saying, I don't understand the GCC, but I like it, but I don't understand it, but I like it. So the more clear we can get, the more Charles can speak good of the GCC, not I'm confused about the GCC. And that we had a long talk last night about the Occupy movement, and Mark and I argued because he's like, that was stupid. What were you guys doing? Like, what? It was like stupid. There's no leaders. You got nothing accomplished. And I'm like,
for the record,
yeah,
I think it was worthwhile, and it came up with a couple of memes that have now stuck. What I'm worried about with Occupy is that it could have been so much more. It was so long with so many people. And if we had managed to figure out how to get more out of that, that would have been a tremendous, I can't even say that I know how to do it, but I'm just saying it was, if you guys know the Clay Shirky idea, Clay Shirky is saying, we just take all of that for a weekend, okay? We could reproduce, theoretically, the contents of the whole entire Wikipedia, But we don't know how to do that. That's where we fail right now with collective intelligence. And so that's really what we're trying to figure out here, is how do we get collectively intelligent? We haven't proven that we can be yet. And so I always cite Ted Nelson on this. Ted Nelson's belief is one genius can produce higher quality work than any team of collective people because we don't know how to work together yet. And until we prove that we can, Ted is right,
Smart people problem.
Yep, it's one of the smart people problems.
Well, I've been listening. I don't know. Stacy, come back on board. Did you have something you wanted to say, Stacy?
I've been here the whole time. It's just that my phone's charging, so I can't walk. So when I walk around, I just turn off my picture, but I'm listening to everything. One thing I do want to throw in, especially towards the idea of legislating, cyberspace. And I think this is a problem in the real world too. There's no, under the guise of free speech or whatever, there's no accountability for actually lying and causing problems. I mean, like we saw the Breonna Taylor report get released, and the police report said that there was no forced entry, which was agreed upon. There absolutely was a forced entry. The report said that there were no injuries. I mean, where's the accountability for that? Right now you have right-wing radio trying to say that Antifa is involved in some of these protests and they're the rioters. Yet the DOJ has not started one action against one member of Antifa, which leads, somebody like me to think, well, they're being scapegoated for no reason. There's a lot, there needs to be some accountability for outright lying. And usually that doesn't get pushed for because we're hearing, oh, free speech. Well, there's a difference between free speech and lying, and it doesn't seem to get addressed.
Absolutely. Starting with the White House. Okay, let's start there.
Well, no, I think we have to start with the media. I think we have to start with television stations. And I think we need civilian review boards with the police. I mean, paperwork has to be at least somewhat accurate. Josh? Oh, is that Josh? I can't say.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, I have a comment to say about that, but then I got to get these guys some food because it's almost like 10:30, 11
I
o'clock.
got to get back.
And they've been up since like 7.
Stacey, just one more thing on you.
But I was just going to say.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, do you mind if I just make one comment, Sam? The law itself on liable and on lying, the actual laws that are on the books at the moment, not including the laws that we would like to put onto the books, if we don't understand the precedence of the current laws that exist in society, if I walk up to someone and say, I'm going to shoot you in the face with a gun. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I don't have a gun. But yet it causes damage. You can take them to court and say that affected me, and we know those laws, and I hope that we learn those laws first before we write the laws in cyberspace. That's all I wanted to say.
Just real quick, I agree with you. But to actually do that is an unbelievable process that requires a lot of money and a lot of time, and it shouldn't be that way. And I know this firsthand.
Okay.
Right, but I'm just saying there are groups and organizations that are teaching if you want to learn the law, and because we didn't learn civics in the last 40 to 50 years, they took it out of the curriculum of public school. That, to me, I think is the problem, that millennials, Generation Z, Generation Y, they don't even know what the laws are, let alone to understand that Black people are being harassed. And they know the laws because they have to. They are taught that by their parents, their uncles, their aunts. They know the law when you get pulled over by a cop. White people don't know. They'll look a cop dead in the eye and say, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. And so without knowing the laws, how can we productively be a society where we're all working by, I think that's what the Black Lives Matter movement is that white people have one law, Black people have another law. White people deal drugs. I have friends that deal drugs in New York that are white and get a little slap on the wrist, and my Black friends that go to jail for 3 years for marijuana. That's not the law. So I'm saying if everybody doesn't know the law, we can't enforce it. If only a few people like lawyers know the law, that creates the lying and the this and the that. So I'm just saying the law seems to be trivial and we all shouldn't learn it, but I do think that we should.
So I do agree with what you say, Josh, but I'm going to go back to one of Stacy's earlier points, which is the media. I think the media has been on this creepy crawler, sliding roller coaster towards being controlled by the monies for years, okay? But the problem is, once the White House was occupied by a liar, all of a sudden, lying became legit. That legitimacy didn't even exist, okay? I mean, it was being abused, but, still there was this pretense that, yeah, you're supposed to report the truth. That completely went out the window when this fucking liar of a president, started spewing, 10, 20, 30 lies a day. That's when people started saying, oh, yeah, I can get away with it. He's getting away with it. Let's just tell people what we want them to believe. That is why I say we got to start there. That is the lowest form of life, let alone a president of a country. And I will rant on that.
And that's it.
Okay?
Yeah, please do, Sam, because that's a complete, utter abuse of power, knowing the law that the president cannot be tried. That's what gave him that soapbox to start lying as much as he did, because he got into a position where there was no repercussions.
And I understand he's a product of a system, which is why, by the way, at 2:00 this morning, I wrote a blog on my site which saying the greatest indictment of our so-called educational system is that it produced a population that put this guy in office. That is the greatest indictment of this educational system I can imagine. Okay?
Preach on it. I'm going to get these guys some food.
Okay.
Blessings. Thank you.
I'm going to go lower
Do
my
not stop that passion. Put that into your violin. Put that into the violin, please, Sam. Play the violin with the ferocity of that.
All right.
Blessings, Stacey. You look wonderful. Congratulations on your new place.
You look happy in your relationship, Stacey. Tell me about it.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Sam, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there tomorrow. Sundays are going to be hard for me to get to, but I will see you next Saturday. And if you find your way on Thursday, I'll be there Thursday. I hope to.
I can never usually do it during the week, but Saturday should be interesting. Kayla's going to bring her things, so please do come.
I'm really interested in that. I might bring somebody as well.
All right, cool. All right, Stacey.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, Jazz. If you could hear me.